Now there are some boolean functions which we are going to be talking about related to strings. So let's say we have something like code, and we're going to do the function is_alnum. So is_alnum, let's see what it says. It says it's true. So basically what it checks is the string an alphanumeric character or not. So is it a bunch of alphabets or numbers or not. If you put a symbol instead, that should be false. Let's see. It says false because it isn't an alphanumeric character. Similarly, we have the is alpha. Let's put code again. Let's see, is alpha, and that just checks if it's an alphabet or not. And that is true, there are alphabets involved. But if we have numbers instead or symbols, let's put symbols and then check is alpha, that should be false because this is not alphabets. Similarly, there's another for numbers as well. So if I put a number and I do is digit, so that's the function, it just checks if the string is basically a number or not. So let's see. Yes, it is a number, so it's true. If I put something else, is digit, and it says false. Now let's go to some other functions. Let's say we have some string something, and we say, so the lower function, so something dot lower, so this is just going to turn everything to small case. So if I had the same thing but everything was uppercase, A B C D, or one is small case, let's do that, is this going to make everything lowercase. Similarly, we have another one, so I'm going to copy that, and similarly we have the upper dot upper, which does the opposite, which you can guess is going to make everything capitalized. And it won't affect when you have, say, 1 2 3 and symbols, it wouldn't really do anything. So that's that. Next, say we had a string science, but we had all these empty spaces which we don't want. It could have been done by mistake by the user, let's say that. So we can use the function called strip function, and that would just remove all those empty white spaces which are unwanted. So that's what the string function does. Next, we have the starts with function. So if we say cool and we check starts with, there's also the ends with, which you probably will know what it does. So starts with, and let's see, does it start with C? Yes, it does start with C, so that is true. Let's check if it starts with COO, and that is true as well. But does it start with BOO? No, it doesn't, so it becomes false. Similarly, there's also the ends with function, which you probably can guess what it's going to do. So now we have another function called the title function. So let's say apples are red, right? And let's do dot title. So dot title would make all the words first letters uppercase, so we can see that A and R have become capital. That's what the title function does. So now let's go to the another function, which is called the replace function. So let's say I have this string abracadabra, and I do dot replace, and what you could do is you could replace, so basically we're going to replace something which is there in the string with something else. So let's say we replace all the A's with Z. So that's going to change all the A's to Z's. We could do another thing. Let's say we change the all AB's to ZY's. So that would change all the occurrences of AB's to ZY's. So you can see ZY, ZY. And if you try to do something which is not possible, so let's say ABC, Well, that wouldn't change anything because there isn't any ABC you find inside our string. Next we go to the join function. So let's say we have some string, so whole string, and what we're going to do is we're going to say dot join. And what shall we join? We can join something. We could actually join anything. It doesn't have to be a string, it could be some anything that is iterable, could be a sequence of, it could be a list, it could be a tuple. In this case let's deal with just strings to make it simple. So let's see what happens. Okay, so something crazy happens. Okay, to make it more simpler, let me try another example. So percentage symbol dot join interesting, right? Let's see what happens. So basically what it does, it puts the percentage symbol in between of the letters of interesting. It doesn't do it at the start, doesn't do it at the end, but it does everywhere in the between alternately. So that's what the join function does. Now you could also do you could combine with many different strings. So let's say interesting subject fun. So now we have many different strings, and that gives an error because I didn't do it properly according to the syntax. So if we have a bunch of different strings, then we'll have to do it within a list. And what it does, it between each element, you can say that between each element of this list of this iterable, it puts the percentage symbol. So that works as well. You could do the same thing with any other iterable. It could be a list, it could be a tuple, dictionary. Let's try the split function. So say I give you a string, let's say I love Python, okay, and I'd say split it, and I'm going to say split, let's say I split it by the argument O. Let's see what that does. So what it does, it gave us a list of elements and it has separated the elements in an interesting manner, and you can see that the O that we had, there is no O that is supposed to be there here. So what it has done is, basically wherever the O's are there, it has split the string into different elements. So there was an O here, so it splitted this part and that side away. So now this is one element and then this is another element, but we have another O, so now this gets splitted. So we have this here, this as VE Pyth as one element, and then at this other side of O N as the last element. Now we could have also done something different. We could have, let's say we could have done, let's say we put nothing, and it says an error, it says empty separator, maybe that's not allowed. So instead let's put nothing at all, really nothing, and that actually splits based on spaces. Now by default the split will take the argument that we want to split in based of spaces. So if you, even if you have multiple spaces, it makes that as still 3 elements. But if you changed it, let's say you specified that it had to be exactly 2 spaces and you split it in that way, let's see what happens. I'm going to put 2 spaces here, and here let's see I'll put 1 2 3 spaces, or 4 spaces actually. Let's see what happens now. And now that gets splitted into, you could imagine there's some empty space in between here, although it's not very clear, but clearly we know that it has splitted between 2 spaces here, 2 spaces here, and it did split. Let's do one more function before we leave. So this is going to be the partition function. So let's say I have some string, let's say I enjoy using Python a lot, let's do partition. Let's say partition based on using. So let's say based on the string using. And so what partition does, it gives always a tuple of 3 elements. In other cases it's not necessary. In the case of split we don't necessarily need to have 3 elements, but in partition it always makes 3 elements. That is, it takes what we have given and that we have given using, which it found here, so that is going to be the middle element, and then what's in the left will be the first element, what's in the right of using will be the third element, last element. So we could have done something else. Let's say we did a u, or no, so yeah, so let's put a u, and that's going to partition. The u is going to be in the middle of a string, of the u is going to be the middle element of our tuple. Whatever was at the left of u is going to be the first, whatever was at the right of u is going to be the last element, and so that's what it does. Now instead, if you put something, let's say if you put something which is not there in a string, it does something rather weird. Keeps the whole string in the first element, the middle element and the last element are have nothing. So it still does something, but slightly weird.